So often when we think about aging, we might think about how physically fit we are, or maybe our appearance in the mirror, wrinkles and all of that. But how often do you consider your brain health? As well as lifespan, I think we need to think about our health span. And there's one thing I'm sure that we all want, and that is to age well, free from pain, immobility, and cognitive decline or incapacity. So our brain is absolutely key to this, which is why I have a big section on this specifically in my new book, A Better Second Half. Because not only does our brain control how we think, obviously, but it also runs our physical selves, our bodies. Now, we know that the gut-brain axis governs mood and emotion, sleep, stress and immune response, and likely so many more things that we have yet to discover. So cognitive decline, when we lose our brain function, is really terrifying, and rates of Alzheimer's disease and dementia, especially among women, are on the rise. And when you think about the reasons why so many more women than men are suffering with the highest rates of brain decline ever recorded, one important reason is likely to be our decline in hormones in later life, because we have really important hormone receptors on our brain cells, receptors for estrogen and testosterone. So, for example, it stands to reason that as we lose these hormones, so that's really from perimenopause onwards, our mental health is going to suffer. And maybe that's why many more women than men are reporting these high levels of Alzheimer's and dementia. So that's another reason why I am in favour of HRT, simply for replacing missing hormones. And that's all HRT is, by the way, hormone replacement therapy, nothing more. But there are many other helpful ways that we can boost our brains with some simple health hacks. So I wanted to share just a few of my go-tos here for keeping our brains in better shape for hopefully many, many years to come. And the first is the importance of fish oils and their omega-3 content, notably DHA. So when it comes to building a better brain, DHA is the real winner here. Multiple clinical trials have been linked with low levels of DHA linked with cognitive decline, as well as showing that supplements of DHA and EPA as well, which is the other omega-3, can reverse the downward curve and even help prevent dementia. So eating fish itself is really helpful. One study that followed fish eaters over a 7-year period showed they had significantly less risk of developing Alzheimer's disease just by eating fish twice a week compared to those who rarely ate any at all. So oily fish are a must in my diet, and I like to use the acronym SMASH. It's a really helpful one to remember here, SMASH. Okay, it stands for salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines and herring. SMASH. Yeah, remember that one. Well, fish oil supplements are also useful, and they are a cheaper alternative, obviously. I take omega-3s daily, either a high-strength one containing both EPA or DHA, you can look on the label for that, or krill. And I write actually about the difference between these two fish fats in my book. When you're buying supplements, it's really important to only buy from reputable brands who are established. They are going to be using sustainably caught fish with contaminant testing carried out on each batch. That's really important. So make sure that your fish oils are fresh and safe. They should never smell rancid, ever. So the other thing that I like to do for the brain, and it's a bit of an old chestnut here, is cold water therapy. Yeah, that old chestnut. So you can take a dip in the sea, in a lake, in a local lido, lots of different ways to get some cold exposure, very good for brain health. So cold water dipping supports the immune system by reducing inflammation, and it may help guard against dementia by increasing a protein that protects against brain cell death. Well, if you follow me on Instagram, you will know that I'm a big fan of sitting in my pond at home in the morning. But, on busier days or if I'm away, I will still give myself a quick blast of cold water, just 60 seconds at the end of my regular shower to get my cold water fix. So there you go. We can all do it. It's free, it's easy, cheap, and it works. So tip number 3, learn something new. So neuroscientists used to think that the brain was static and it just simply degenerated with age. We now know about neuroplasticity, And this is the ability to grow new brain cells, to rewire, restructure, and even expand areas of the brain previously thought to be beyond repair. So one of the easiest and the most effective ways to improve brain plasticity is to learn a new activity, especially one that involves a different set of skills. So for example, if you are a keen chess player, then take up a ball and racket sport, or vice versa. Crossword puzzles, word games, these are all good, but should be balanced with something involving motor skills. That's like hand-eye coordination. So I've recently started a more regular yoga practice, partly for this reason, and movement actually is really good too. And this is my tip number 4. Many studies link physical activity with improved brain capacity. And not just the aerobic kind that increases oxygen capacity to boost blood supply to the top of the head. Obviously, you'd think that was a natural reason why it works. And of course, moving the body does circulate fresh oxygen around the brain. It improves blood flow and the delivery of all those lovely brain-enhancing nutrients. But studies also show that slow movement, such as walking mindfully, Tai Chi, yoga, Pilates, they also boost the number of new nerve cells in the brain and can increase the proteins that help these neurons to thrive. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so finally, tip number 5, rest, and a bit more rest. So the key to our brain health really is keeping our brains healthy but also rested. So there's lots that we can do, but also it's important to kind of switch off, and we have to balance the doing with the non-doing. And sleep is obviously key to this. The brain needs really good quality sleep in order to rest and repair. So sleep is when our brains have time to catch up kind of on the day's housekeeping. It's when our brains will process memories and activities from the day. And in terms of brain health as we age, the impact of getting a good night's sleep really cannot be overestimated. It's even more important than when we were younger, especially when it comes to lowering anxiety levels and dampening down stress responses. But we can also find pockets of rest, I think, throughout the day too. You don't need to lie down for a great big long nap. Meditation, for example, that's something that I've gone back to quite recently. Not for very long, maybe just 10 minutes at a time. I kind of like to do it at the beginning and the end of the day, sort of like mental health bookends. And I think making sure that we find time to switch off is key. So obviously, long term, holiday, for example, but even just taking a few moments to pause, put our feet on the grass, big fan of all that grounding stuff, and, our eyes to the sky. This can all help our brains just to take that moment of peace in a busy schedule. So rest is actually restorative. It's an active process. And talking of taking time out for ourselves, of course, my book, A Better Second Half, is out now, and I have jam-packed it with tips just like these and more for living a longer, healthier and ultimately happier life, which is what it's all about. Yeah? Well, I'll add a link below if you'd like to order a copy, and a huge thanks to everyone that has already read it and shared it with others. I know that you're going and buying, 3 or 4 copies for friends and family, and I think that's just so amazing to hear, because it's really important to share these simple, easy, cheap and effective ways to look and feel so much better. Plus, if you're keen to learn more ways to care for your brain, do be sure to check out the podcast episode that I recorded recently with Patrick Holford. So he's the founder of the Institute for Optimum Nutrition, and he's the chief executive of the Food for the Brain Foundation. So we sat down and we discussed how we can reduce our risk of Alzheimer's disease, and it was, I have to tell you, a completely fascinating conversation. Patrick was sharing the role that certain nutrients play in protecting our brains, and he also discussed the 30 factors that are associated with a heightened risk of Alzheimer's. It's an absolute must listen. Do please go listen to it. I'll pop a link again below so you can tune in however you listen to your podcasts. He also talks about testing our homocysteine levels and the importance of combining high-strength B vitamins with high-strength omega-3 fish oils too. The two needed together. Really riveting stuff. Well, as ever, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. What tips can you share for keeping our brains happy and healthy? Love to hear. You can leave a comment below. Until the next time, go well, keep your brain feeling super sharp. I'm going to go and switch off with a bit of reading, maybe, quiet time, deep breathing, just staring into the sky, doing nothing. Yeah, sounds great, hey?